Good afternoon, Venerable Milken, Venerable Zhizhi, Nick, and all Dharma friends joining us online. We're about to begin our shared study of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, also called Lamrim Chenmo, the monumental work by J. Tsongkhapa. This treatise systematically organizes all of the Buddha's teachings into a single, comprehensive, and graduated path to Buddhahood. Before delving into this text itself, it is beneficial to cultivate certain contemplations concerning the excellence of its authors, the venerable holders of the Lamrim lineage. We especially recognize the immense contributions of Venerable Atisha, who first brought the lineage to Tibet, and J. Tsongkhapa, whose most outstanding composition is this very Lamrim Chenmo. Let us take a moment to reflect upon their profound wisdom and kindness. Where is my mouse? Okay, here. Thank you. Prayer before learning. To help sentient beings across all universes, we must strive for ultimate enlightenment. The path to enlightenment begins with learning the Buddha's teachings. We're currently exploring the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. May all Buddhas, Dharma, Sangha, and past practitioners empower us to deepen our understanding of the teachings and equip us to overcome our own suffering and that of others. With unwavering dedication, one day we may achieve ultimate enlightenment and establish Pure Lands. Together we can guide all sentient beings toward liberation from suffering and toward enlightenment. We are now praising our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, thereby showing that we follow the fundamental guru, the Buddha, and practice in reliance upon his lineage. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. And now we take refuge and generate the aspiration to become a Buddha. I take refuge until awakening in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the merit of giving and the rest that I have done, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, so to have this prayers before learning is very crucial. Yeah, just kind of like a set ourselves in a good channel. So kind of like going through this channel, we'll be able to connect with all these lineage teachers and we'll be able to understand the teachings thoroughly. Begin as the great treatise prescribes, present the greatness of the author, especially the lineages of Venerable Atisha and J. Tsongkhapa, then establish the excellence of the Dharma they bequeathed. It first shows that all of the Buddha's teachings are mutually non-contradictory. Second, makes every scripture rise as personal instruction. Thirdly, enables one to discern the conqueror's Buddha's intent with ease. And fourth, forestalls the grave karma of slandering the Dharma. Once the protocols for teaching and listening are set, the teacher expounds faithfully according to the treatise, and the listener becomes prepared as a proper vessel, free of the three faults, the upside-down vessel not absorbing, or dirty vessel, prejudiced, and leaky vessel, forgetful or distracted, and grounded in the six recognitions to see ourselves as the patient, see the Dharma as the medicine, and then taking the medicine as the cure, seeing the teacher as the doctor, seeing the Buddhas are superior beings, really having a strong aspiration that the teaching exists forever, will be able to benefit all sentient beings in future generations. Guided by the stages of the path, practitioners then cultivate firm conviction, advancing from non-valid cognition to inferential valid cognition, and from inference to direct valid cognition. This method of study is indispensable within an authentic lineage. These standards for expounding and hearing must be established before any teaching begins. Okay, now we come to the second point, the greatness of enabling one to understand that all of the scriptures are instructions for practice within this greatness of the teaching. And then here, under the greatness of enabling one to understand that all of the scriptures are instructions for practice, we have already covered 5 points. I will briefly review them and then proceed to the 6th. The first, showing that the vast collections of Sutra and Tantra are the supreme instructions. If we wish to abandon suffering and attain happiness, we must use the right methods. The Buddha is the one who perfectly accomplished this. So we rely on his guidance, especially his lifelong teachings preserved across the sutras and tantras. By correctly understanding those teachings, we achieve complete, not partial, liberation and discern definitive from non-definitive meanings, thereby avoiding this misinterpretation and the great fault of slandering the Dharma. Now, saying that this, we don't have to learn, and that is important. No, we value all the teachings of the Buddha. Hence, at the very outset, we should generate bodhicitta, the aspiration to become Buddha and benefit all sentient beings, and cherish the instructions of both Sutra and Tantra. Second, explaining that without pith instructions from the lineage gurus, those and then those of weaker intelligence cannot gain these hidden meanings within the sutras and tantras. One must rely on the master's personal instructions or teacher's personal instructions. Through such pith guidance, we learn to read the Buddha's words without error and know how to practice them correctly. And today we will be talking about what will be so-called the pith guidance, according to, of course, One Channel. Third, distinguishing pure instructions from pseudo instructions. After studying scriptures and treatises, the point is not merely to finish some books, but to let their guidance transform our patterns of thought. If we do not study in this way, we easily reduce Dharma study to stockpiling information and mixing it with worldly knowledge, using it as conversation material rather than as a path to liberation. Fourth, knowing the difference between pure and impure understanding. Apart from the Buddha's words in Sutra and Tantra, and the treatises that analyze those words, there is no other method of practice. Any assume they need not understand the Buddha's speech, thinking that simply meditating, many prostrations, and heeding the sayings of seasoned practitioners suffices. In fact, this is blind practice. Like, okay, I just listening to those practitioners, they share their own personal experiences or their thoughts in their texts, not even go into study the sutras and tantras. This way of learning is very dangerous because we don't know if all these teachings are really according to the Buddha's words or just merely by their own experiences. And fifth, establishing how all the Buddha's words appear as instructions for practice. We cannot take a single scripture or treatise to be the entirety of the Buddha's intent, nor imagine that reading them all equals understanding that intent. The Dharma has both a teaching aspect and a realization aspect. We adopt the Buddha's vision of the world as our own. And crucially, we grasp the reasons that establish that vision. Thus, hearing, reflecting, and practicing are essential, with the stages of reflection being the key to implementation. It is like first mapping the running route and learning correct technique, then actually running according to that route and method. With this review complete, we now take up the sixth point, indicating the method that makes all scriptural words appear as instructions, namely analytical meditation. Okay. So the text. Thus, these instructions include in complete form all the key points of the path from the scriptures and their commentaries, from how to rely on a teacher through serenity and insight. 如是由此教授能摄一切经论道之书要，于从亲近善知识法乃至止观。In this context, instructions denotes the entire stages of the path. A curriculum that gathers within itself all of the Buddha's words, encompassing the scriptural collections and the treatises alike. From the very outset, reliance upon a spiritual teacher up to the consummation in meditative serenity and insight. The whole architecture of the Buddha's doctrine is contained within the stages of the path. They then lead you through concise stages of practice in which you engage in stabilizing meditation on that which requires stabilizing meditation, and you analyze with discerning wisdom that which requires analytical meditation. By doing this, you will understand that all of the scriptures are instructions for practice. 此一切中诸因舍修者，即作舍修；诸因具修者，即以则会而正思则，编为行持次第引导，故一切圣言皆现为教授。Stabilizing meditation by cultivating calm abiding will attain inner serenity. The key points of its training are two: clarity and steadiness. When these are secured, we are then fit to undertake matters of greater import. Analytical meditation, this is for cultivating discerning wisdom, so that what we have heard in the Dharma can be retained and our study bear fruit. Discerning presupposes something heard, lines of reasoning received from a teacher concerning the Dharma. A qualified teacher will lead us through inquiry and debate within the lesson. Having followed such inquiry, we must memorize its rationale. In analytical meditation, we review that rationale again and again until we grasp it with certainty. Absent this process, one cannot enter into authentic practice. As Dhammamitra's Clear Words commentary states, to meditate is to cause the mind to take on the state or condition of the object of meditation. J. Tsongkhapa explains when we say meditate on compassion or meditate on faith, we mean that the mind must be made to generate these qualities. As for truly acquiring qualities of liberation, J. Tsongkhapa notes that the treatises on knowledge frequently explain the transition from the desire realm to a higher level produces a good quality that is the result of meditation. Whereas within the desire realm itself, there is no such meditatively produced quality. Okay. So that is, we must attain access to the first meditative stability, the first meditative stabilization, completing the 9 mental states. Okay. I'll go through these 9 states. Then we can actually say that, okay, now I'm actually practicing myself towards liberation, toward liberation. The first is like fixing the mind. Second, fixation with some continuity. Third, patchy fixation. Fourth, good fixation. Fifth, becoming disciplined. Sixth, becoming peaceful. Seventh, becoming very pacified. Eighth, becoming single-pointed. And ninth, fixed absorption. We had this discussion in basic instruction to Buddhism when we were discussing samatha. So you might also find a course online to take a look at this part. As Papanka Rinpoche says, upon completing these 9, you need not exert the slightest effort to slip into single-pointed concentration. Just as a person skilled at recitation can at once commence a familiar passage, you are now completely absorbed in single-pointed concentration. So for someone who reached this meditative state, you will be able to enter into profound meditation anytime. Yeah, and there won't be any difficulties. Okay. So anyone who will be able to attain this kind of meditative state can proclaim that I'm someone who is practicing the Dharma. I am working on the path to liberation. Okay, so this is kind of strict, but this is what Lama Tsongkhapa tried to tell us in the later chapters. Therefore, prior to that attainment, we must apply ourselves as much as possible to hearing and reflection, and in cultivation, reach at least the level of good fixation or becoming disciplined. Then we will have sufficient power of memory and vigilance to understand the Dharma and apply it in life without impediment. Teacher Tang states, stabilizing meditation 2 arises from discerning wisdom. For when through hearing and reflection, we develop discerning wisdom, we can fix the mind upon a given Dharma principle. If we cannot yet do so, we further cultivate serenity with the aim of reaching discerning wisdom both from hearing and reflection. In sum, the training proceeds by alternation between stabilizing and analytical meditation until at all times serenity and insight are present together. Okay, so these comes through time of practice throughout our lives. And to meditate on all these teachings while sitting here, for example, it is also learning the Dharma and contemplating on the teachings. And then we try to memorize how we come to the conclusion of certain assertions or certain conclusions, that how to cultivate ourselves, and then bring that into our analytical meditation when meditating. So go through all these. Of course, we can also work on samatha, which is calm abiding. That is important. But the aim of doing so is because we want to develop this discerning wisdom. Okay. And then come to this final point of the 7 points, stating that if one abandons analytic meditation, one cannot make all scriptural words appear as instructions. Therefore, one should cherish pure analysis. Otherwise, you will spend your entire life without discerning wisdom, practicing just some incomplete portion of the path and not the complete corpus. 若不尔者，于非圆满道体一分，离观察会虽尽受修。Thus, you will not understand that the classic texts are instructions for practice, but you will abandon them, seeing them as merely promoting superficial knowledge and eliminating others' misconceptions. 诸大经论非但不现为真教授且于彼等见为开辟广大外界而放射之。If we do not understand the stages of the path, then even after hearing many doctrines, we will treat them as mere superficial knowledge, useful for refuting others' misconceptions, yet unable to yield genuine benefit. Such hearing will not truly remove our own afflictions, nor enable us to assist sentient beings in removing theirs. Still less will it serve as the means to liberation from cyclic existence and the attainment of Buddhahood. Okay. Here, it is evident that the topics explained in the classic texts are, for the most part, only things that require analysis with discerning wisdom. 现见诸大经文之中所全诸义，多分皆须以观察会而正观则。For the most part, only things that require analysis with discerning wisdom, Teacher Tang explains. Analytical meditation must predominate over mere stabilizing. It is by repeatedly analyzing that discerning wisdom arises. So repeatedly repeatedly analyzing the teachings that we received, and then go through these reasonings of supporting one topic in stages of the path, for example. Now, this is to kind of like, I call it is the self-coding process. Not by spending excessive time in stabilization alone, not just sit there and counting the breath and just reside in this tranquility and doing nothing. No, this is the way. Therefore, mastering the complete corpus of the stages of the path is an essential foundation for Dharma practice. Lacking this basis, if one only sits in monasteries or meditation centers day and night, it will not become a path to Buddhahood. Okay, now this is what the Teacher Tang explained. If you cast them aside when you practice, then how can you develop an understanding that sees them as the supreme instructions? If these are not the supreme instructions, then could you find a master whose instructions surpass these? 此复修史若弃舍者则于彼等何能发生定解？现为最胜教授此等若非最胜教授，谁能获得教造此等有为殊胜教授论师？ If you cast them aside when you practice, then how can you develop an understanding that in training, you abandon study of the complete corpus of the stages of the path? How could you possibly seize in their entirety the key points of the past instilled from the scriptures and their commentaries? You could not. If these are not the supreme instructions, then could you find a master whose instructions surpass these? Teacher Tang clarifies, There is no one who can surpass Venerable in revealing the value of the Dharma. Lama Tsongkhapa, with deliberate modesty, merely expounded without composing anew, making the land for the path perfectly clear to us. So with the teachings, with the explanations of Lama Tsongkhapa, of course, based on the text by Venerable Tisha, the land for the path, we'll be able to reveal the value of the Dharma. Okay. Therefore, when it becomes clear to you that the profound and vast scriptural collections, along with their commentaries, are instructions for practice, you will quickly understand that the classic texts of the profound tantric collections, along with their commentaries, are also instructions for practice. 如是若能将其深广细经即是现为教授，则其甚深序部及论诸大教典亦无少劳现为教授。Tichang says, if guided by a qualified spiritual teacher, you make the stages of the path clear, then both the sutric scriptures and treatises and the tantric scriptures and treatises will appear to you as instructions for practice. Your capacity for practice will increase, and you will quickly comprehend more of the Dharma. Moreover, beyond learning the stages of the path in this manner, you must likewise, for all other scriptural and commentarial collections, whether sutra or tantra, follow your spiritual teacher's guidance to clarify them one by one and regard them as instructions for practice. Only then will genuine benefit arise. It is certainly not the case that after learning a portion from your spiritual teacher, you should leave the rest to private reading and your own conjecture. Therefore, finding a spiritual teacher to rely upon is crucial so that you may continue to study with him the various scriptural and commentarial traditions. And here it says, becomes clear. What is becomes clear? As Venerable Atisha's eminent disciple, Gamba Rinchen Lama said, he understood all the texts as instructions for practice by grinding to dust all wrong actions of body, speech, and mind during a single session of meditation on Venerable Atisha's instructions. You too must come to such an understanding. Okay. You will then become certain that they are the supreme instructions. You will completely overcome the misconceptions that consider these tantras to be only teachings that should be cast aside because they are not actual instructions for practice. 则能发起持持彼等为圣教授所定解能尽遮遣妄执彼等非实教授背弃正法诸邪分别庆无所语。Okay, here consider these tantras to be only teachings that should be cast aside. According to the Chinese translation, the term tantras here includes the profound and vast scriptural collections mentioned just before. So not only tantras, but also sutras. Only by relying on Venerable Atisha's Land for the Path and Tsongkhapa's Stages of the Path can we avoid treating the Dharma merely as information for academic disputation or for correcting others' views, and avoid mistaking meditation alone for the path to Buddhahood, or seeking liberation in books outside the Dharma. In sum, it is precisely the Land for the Path and the Stages for the Path that enable us to draw instructions for practice from the sutric and tantric scriptural and commentarial traditions. This is not self-advertisement, but the sober recognition that without these stages, one fails to extract practical instruction from the Buddha's words. Okay, until here, I would like to invite Venerable Milgen to share some of his thoughts because he, as a monastic, he might have this kind of experience when learning the Dharma in monasteries or with some of the so-called Dharma teachers, uh, still find it very difficult to cultivate. And the reason might be because what? Uh, Maybe they don't actually understand the stages of the path well, and this will be very crucial. Venerable Milgen says that my own experience as well as a um, Dhamma learner, I used to be a monastic in the monastery. I myself also find this uh, very difficult to find someone who will be able to actually elaborate the teachings based on stages of the path. Okay. So, Venerable, would you please share some of your experiences?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors in this. One big one being just the transmission, right, across generations of how to teach and how to teach progressively and in a holistic or systematic way. Um, Versus maybe others that focus more on their maybe personal practice. And so they're very skilled in that area, but not quite skilled in teaching. But they have experience, like we've discussed before. Great meditators don't necessarily make great teachers, right? Um, in my own experience, I've been at places where I think people are very well intentioned or very well read in different areas, but they don't have a systematic way to present the teachings and they're not organized. They kind of have been just like, oh, whatever is happening, and then we kind of just apply something rather than having any kind of like pedagogical framework. Even in Tendai, in Japan, it's based on the Lotus Sutra, but actually they don't really follow the structure of the Lotus Sutra teaching because, as we've noted, stages of the path, Lamrim text reflects the same outline as the Lotus Sutra, a three-stage process, of different capacities of people. It tends to be more circumstantial style of teaching, like, oh, this is what you're going through, so here's like something to address it, right? Rather than having a clear objective or goal that I think we receive from Lotus Sutra or from like stages of the path types of text, right? It's like there's a clear progression. And then I've had the experience with different teachers, some that are much more well educated or well practiced, but then there's obstacles to accessing that in a meaningful way for them to be able to teach me or for me to be able to receive and listen. So there's those kinds of like what's personal for us and then what's in our situation. And I've also had experience with other teachers that had positions of authority or certificates and paperwork. And as we've talked about, these don't equal being capable. But I found over the time that actually I had more experience and education than they did, right? Even though they had these so-called higher status based on time or connections. Um, so I think there's multiple reasons, right? Why we might not be able to um, meet with or receive a complete package of the Dharma teaching. I think this, not to be apocalyptic, but this is also Dharma ending age situation, right? It becomes increasingly more difficult to integrate the Dharma into our life, but to also access the Dharma. Um, I also want to mention on that. I don't know. Do you have anything I missed? Uh,
Yeah, thank you, Venerable.
yeah, okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Venerable, for
Um,
sharing. Venerable Chujie, you want to
Yeah.
say something, please?
No, no, no. I just wanted to say that Venerable disappeared for a few seconds.
Okay. Thank you, Venerable. Okay, let's move on to the next part. If Nick, you have any questions, please.
No, no questions.
Uh, okay, thank you. And then we move on. Okay, this is the third point within this part. The greatness of enabling one easily to find the conqueror's intent. Understanding the greatness of enabling one easily to find the Buddha's intent makes it clear that knowing how to interpret the Buddha's scriptures is directly connected with discerning the method for attaining Buddhahood. And to learn how to interpret them correctly, one must rely upon a good teacher, a qualified teacher who holds the authentic lineage to elucidate the meaning of the stages of the path. Okay, in this session, the greatness of enabling one easily to find the Buddha's intent. There are 3 points to be explained. Now, first, for beginners, the Buddha's intention is not easily found without a teacher's oral instructions. Here, oral instructions refers to the guidance of the stages of the path. Only by relying on these instructions can one understand all the scriptures and treatises of the Dharma. And through them, extract the methods of practice they contain. Okay. The classic texts, the scriptures, along with their commentaries, are the supreme instructions. Yet, even if beginners, persons without extensive training, delve into them, they will not discover their intended meaning without depending on the personal instructions of an excellent being, the very good teacher, a qualified teacher. 智言及论诸大教典，虽是第一最胜教授，然初发业，未曾贯修，不得其入啊！若不依止善事教授，直去彼等，难获密意。Okay, here, depending on the personal instructions of an excellent being, the supreme instructions are the Buddha's teaching themselves, as disclosed in the scriptures together with their commentaries. Now, we are beginners lacking extensive training. That is, we have not cultivated the habit of practicing in accordance with the stages of the path. And our discerning wisdom is also weak. We cannot tell the differences most of the time, unless you have been exposed into the teachings for a very long time. We'll be able to actually somehow knowing the differences and the nuances between different topics in Buddha's scriptures. Therefore, we must study the Dharma through this treatise and the stages of the path to enlightenment in order to comprehend the Buddha's words and to grasp the methods of practice. Without this, Buddhahood is impossible, for the path of cultivation cannot be correctly apprehended. Otherwise, as teacher Tang observes, one may have read all 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra and come away feeling that there's no central point to apply in practice, preferring instead to sit and count the breath for 5 minutes, merely for a sense of ease and comfort. Teacher Tang seems to be describing my feelings and thoughts when I was reading the Lotus Sutra during my time at the Buddhist college. Okay. Even if they find intended meaning, they search. They search will require a very long time and a great deal of effort. 设能获得一闭关待长久时期即刚勤劳. Also, come to the next point. It is found through a guru's oral instruction. However, if they depend on the personal instructions of a guru, they will easily come to know the intended meaning. 若能依止尊长教授则一通达. Okay, here, very long time and a great deal of effort. Chitang says, absent study of the stages of the path, one must spend an exceedingly long time and exert great toil in Buddhist practice with no assurance of effect. If, however, one relies upon the instructions of the sages of the path, study and cultivation become straightforward and practical, easier. It will be easier. Tang explains, if you try to bypass the sages of the path and seek realizations directly from sutras and treatises, it may require countless great eons. Indeed, 10 or more great eons together with worship before many Buddhas and extensive practice of compassion or repentances before you even rearouse the resolve to learn the stages of the path. Hence, the reason some advance more swiftly and achieve more than those who have spent many years in monasteries. They have grasped the stages of the path. Thus, they may surpass even long-tenured students in Chinese Buddhist colleges, especially, and many monastics who have not studied the stages of the path. Okay, so if we can actually follow this text, follow the instructions of Lama Tsongkhapa, and then gradually, after finish this study, we will be able to have this very complete structure of the Buddha's teachings, and we'll be able to cultivate smoothly and, of course, swiftly to comprehend the teachings of the Buddha in the future. This is the third point. By relying on the stages of the path instructions, one clarifies the essential meaning of the scriptures and treatises. These instructions of the land for the path to enlightenment will readily bestow certain knowledge of the key points of the Buddha's word and the treatises. I will explain at length how this is done in the appropriate sections below. 以此教授能速授与决定解了经论扼要其中道理于各时中自当广说。Teacher says, without the instructions of the stages of the path, even a renowned university professor in Buddhist studies, though having read hundreds of Buddhist books and papers, will still be unable to interpret the Buddha's word and the treatises correctly, or to extract their key points. Really, that's for sure. I've encountered several professors, and throughout my life, spent time in Buddhist college for 6 years, 2 years in college, and participated a lot of academic conferences. I've heard so many professors trying to explain teachings of the Buddha. It was at the time when I did not actually come across learning all these stages of path teachings. It was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to understand what they were trying to say, and of course to generate this authentic feeling of that. Okay, these are very valuable teachings. I really have to follow these instructions. No, at the time it would be like, okay, accumulating all these knowledges and would be kind of like in a very vague understanding of the teachings, and then still not being able to apply all these teachings well in my own life. So certainly it is very crucial for us to learn through this text, and we'll be able to really generate the understanding of the Buddha's teachings, Okay, come to the next. The greatness of enabling one to refrain automatically from great wrongdoing. First, showing that abandoning the Dharma as the biggest misdeed. The Lotus Sutra and the chapter of the Truth Speaker explain that all of the Buddha's words directly or indirectly teach methods for becoming a Buddha. 如白莲华及地者品宣说，一切佛语或实或全，皆是开示成佛方便。Directly teaching method for becoming a Buddha. This is saying like the Buddha says only one vehicle, and then when in all other scriptures or tantric texts, or when the Buddha was trying to instruct disciples or directing them to the way of ultimate enlightenment, which is to become a Buddha. Indirectly teaching method for becoming a Buddha, sometimes because different capacities of the sentient beings, the Buddha would explain teachings in different, like 3 vehicles. Okay, no matter what, these teachings are actually directing to the one vehicle, this one, the one vehicle, which is the path to the Buddhahood, which is Mahayana. It is saying that no matter is the small vehicle or the great vehicle, Dharma, actually all are leading to understanding how to become a Buddha. So this way of explaining is based on the Lotus Sutra, chapter of the Truth Speaker. Tito-san says, obviously from this treatise, so that we will be able to use the method taught by the stages of the path to reveal the stages to become a Buddha. So the stages of the path to enlightenment, once we understood, then the lower capacity, we cannot say that this is only for those who can only be benefited by the teachings to be able to reborn into the human realms again, or in the heavenly realms again. Or the middle capacity cannot be treated as only for those Shravakas, all those hero practitioners. Oh, no. Because the Buddha's intent is to lead all sentient beings toward one yana, which is one vehicle to the Buddhahood. But of course, we can still teach those who can only be benefited by the instructions of leading them to the rebirth in the human realms or the heavenly realms, and teach them something about lower capacity path. And it is also fine for us to teach those Shravaka pursuers that the middle capacity path, but from the stages of the path angle, those who are practicing in different vehicles are actually all striving to become a Buddha in the future. For of course, because we are the Buddha. True intent was to lead all sentient beings to becoming a Buddha. So at this moment, you cannot claim that there is one Dharma that you don't have to practice, or some of the teachings you don't have to follow. All the teachings of the Buddha we must learn and practice, because all of them are showing us the way to become a Buddha. Thus, there is no such thing like, oh, Hinayana, it's not important, the Mahayana is important, or those would be saying like, some of the teachings are not actually in this ultimate meaning, so you don't have to learn. Some are for us to realize the ultimate teachings of the Buddha, so that these are so-called the truth, and then you should practice. No, you won't have this kind of a mistaken understanding. Okay, and then Teacher Lin presented this chart to show the basic understanding or the basic structure of the Lotus Sutra, the wide lotus of the good Dharma. There is only one yana. Teeter explained this chart by saying, the central point is this. All Buddhist teachings are stages leading to Buddhahood. Therefore, ultimately, there is only the single vehicle. In this sense, the masters who best read the Lotus Sutra are Venerable Atisha and J. Tsongkhapa. Okay, so what is the trace gate? Accounts of Shakyamuni Buddha's present life and teaching career. For the sake of the truth, expedient teachings are explored. What does that mean? The Buddha's lifetime of teaching chiefly serves to lead beings to the Mahayana. Okay, that's in concise explanation here. And the next, the expedient teachings to reveal the truth. His presentation of the three vehicles is an expedient that in fact discloses the one vehicle to Buddhahood. Okay, setting aside the expedient teachings and establishing the truth. Setting expedience aside, the Buddha directly reveals the meaning of becoming a Buddha. Okay. And then the origin gate, revelation of the Buddha's original enlightenment. Okay, here, from the original ground, the Buddha manifests praise appearances. Okay, in chapter 15, the lifespan of the Tathagata, the Buddha declares his enlightenment long ago. What we mean as Shakyamuni Buddha is the trace manifestation from that original ground, meaning that the Buddha was long ago became a Buddha already. He was revealing himself as a Buddha in this current world, to us, to show us this what so-called the ultimate enlightenment. Disclosing the near to manifest the far. The proximate appearance of Shakyamuni Buddha is used to reveal his inconceivably remote original Buddhahood. Okay. So near to manifest the far. From this Rupa Kaya to manifest the Dharmakaya. Okay, from this Shakyamuni Buddha animation, the animation of the Buddha, to show us this historic Buddha form, this appearance, actually, is to lead us to see the real Buddha's body, which is the Dharma body, okay, which is the body to encompass all the teachings of the Buddha, of all the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. Setting aside the traces and establishing the original. Do not cling to the historical storyline, like prison spirit, renunciation, austerities, and awakening, as if it were ultimate. There are skillful manifestations to show that ordinary beings can become Buddhas. In truth, the Buddha had long since attained enlightenment. Here then, the overall structure of the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus of the Trace Gate refers to the first 14 chapters. A Lotus of the Origin Gate, it refers to the later 14. The total of the Lotus Sutra comprises 28 chapters. This scripture is truly the utmost importance. The Tiantai tradition takes the Lotus Sutra as its primary canonical basis. Okay, just like Venerable Myogen mentioned earlier, like this is very important text. However, even those who are following the Tiantai tradition, all these masters, might not be able to actually explain the teachings according to the Lotus Sutra in a very graduated way and gradually to reveal the value of the sutra. Okay, furthermore, with this chart, the white lotus of the good Dharma, there is only one yana. General preface Dhanakata appears in this world for the sole purpose of leading sentient beings to acquire, reveal, enter, and realize the vision of the Buddha's wisdom. Because this is a very famous phrase from the Lotus Sutra. And then separate exposition. The Buddha teaches the Dharma through the single vehicle of the Buddhayana, the Buddha's vehicle, to lead beings to ultimate omniscience, for there are no second or third vehicles. So from the chapter 2, skill in methods, time for causes and conditions, chapter 3, the parable, in sum, I teach the Dharma to beings through a single yana, which is the Buddhayana, ultimate omniscience. There are no second or third yanas. Okay, so I also teach the Dharma to beings through a single yana, which is the Buddhayana, ultimate omniscience. There are no second or third yanas, even to the 10 directions of the Buddhas in different universes. They all taught in the same way. Okay, in conclusion, who give the teaching of separate yanas? There is only one yana. There is no second, and there is never the world a third. Okay, so Chitang explains. General exposition, the Buddhas, the world honored ones, appear in the world for one great purpose. What is this one great purpose, the sole purpose? It is to acquire, reveal, enter, and realize the vision of the Buddha's wisdom. Okay, to show it, to lead them and to realize it, and to bring all sentient beings to enter into the wisdom of the Buddha. Yes, opening and showing, or to reveal, to acquire, to reveal, to reveal, to acquire, to reveal. Here, or opening or showing describes what the Buddha does. The Buddha does. Realizing and entering, or you can say like entering, realizing, the same. Describes what sentient beings must do. Different translations, sorry. Okay, here. Chaitanya takes this very opening and showing of the Buddha's words and makes it the means of beings to realize and enter them. Thus, the preliminaries, the path of the lesser beings and the path of the intermediate beings, all become rungs on the ladder to Buddhahood. This is truly remarkable. Says, and separate exposition, the Lotus Sutra declares there is only one vehicle. There are neither two nor three. That is, the Buddha's final intent is the single vehicle. He's not ultimately teaching a second or third vehicle, but the great vehicle alone. But then, one may object, why does the Buddha speak of three vehicles? The answer is found in the chapters Skill in Methods, Time for Causes and Conditions, and the Parable. In order to proclaim the one vehicle, the Buddhas employ a variety of skillful means, create manifold conditions, present diverse parables, diverse parables, and deftly use many modes of expression. What they reveal is precisely the one vehicle that leads beings to omniscience. Omniscience is to describe the Buddha would not only be able to personally experience the emptiness of the world, of the universe, but also be able to differentiate every causes and conditions, knowing everything thoroughly. So he would be able to reveal both conventional truth and ultimate truth simultaneously in front of him, like that. Okay, so this is kind of like so-called omniscience. All the Buddhas in 10 directions do the same. Their lineages are of one accord. Shakyamuni Buddha likewise says, I too teach for the one Buddha vehicle, for omniscience. This is the sole great purpose. If even across the 10 directions there is no second, how could there be a third? Shakyamuni Buddha may, by expedient means, open up the three, yet his ultimate intent is identical to that of all Buddhas, neither two nor three. Accordingly, when one truly grasps Shakyamuni Buddha's intent, even the so-called Hinayana teachings become steps toward Buddhahood. Hence, we should not label them Hinayana. Rather, they are the trainings of the intermediate beings. If one fails to understand that the great treatise on the stages of the path bears this intent, one will mistakenly say that it teaches for three separate vehicles. No, not so. The great treatise lays out the stages of the path to enlightenment, the Bodhi path, a single path to Buddhahood. Its ultimate intent is not to promote three vehicles. It does not mean that the lower scope is merely the human and God vehicle. That the intermediate scope is the Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, the two vehicles, and that the great scope alone is the Bodhisattva vehicle. Rather, the lower and intermediate scopes are to be regarded as steps toward Buddhahood. Still, one may teach the lower scope to those of human and God capacity, and the intermediate scope to those Shravaka capacity, merely clarifying and interpreting the great treatise. In this way, a seemingly simple correction is something that even many who have studied it for over a decade may not yet fully manage to do. Okay, so we will end here because now it's 3:00 p.m. So any further comments or thoughts, Venerables?
Just one thought, thinking about that and the earlier comment about having progressive or like a systematic way of teaching is that even within the Lotus Sutra, right, people can look at it and be like, oh, now the Buddha has revealed the ultimate meaning of teaching, right? The highest mode or approach of teaching. So we can just go ahead and skip the rest, right? They apply that process. It's possible to apply that process over time. Be like, oh, he taught all these sutras, and now at the end, he's finally revealed it. So we should only focus on that, and that's applicable to all people. Um, but it's not applicable to all people, right? We can't just be like, oh, here's the highest one, so yeah, let's not bother with the rest. And I think that sometimes is still a way of thinking and teaching, particularly within my experience within Tendai, for example, is just a focus on the ultimate. Which I think even if we look at Lamrim, Lama Tsongkhapa is not advising us to do that, right? But to do honest self-reflection and have a full picture, right? Rather than just jumping to the goal and discarding everything that goes towards that. So yeah, thank you for drawing those parallels between the two texts, uh, one written by a master and then one of the sutras. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Venerable Zhizhi, is there anything you want to add?
I think, but maybe it's out of this topic, but for me, it's always stays very weird that Lotus Sutra has like some presence and some quotations in Lamrim in several places. Is it as far as I remember? Correct me if I'm wrong. But there is not so many even these days. There's not many commentaries from Tibetan perspective on Lotus Sutra, and it's interesting that they didn't put any attention to it.
Okay, so this part, I think we are making this series of classes, online classes. We translated the teacher Tang's commentaries on Lotus Sutra, and it's rather short. Everyone probably lost probably 10 minutes,
No.
or less than minutes,
No,
10
no.
minutes. Yeah. So we can
No, it's
actually
not what I
find
meant.
not 10 minutes, but
I mean,
though,
it's not what I meant. I meant that Tibetans don't put a lot of attention into commenting Lotus Sutra.
yeah. So I say like maybe to have Tutor Kang's version, and then you might know a little bit about what the basic meaning of the sutra is trying to tell us, separated into different chapters. And Tutor Tang would introduce briefly in every episode. So I think you may also find that. And thank you, Venerable Myogen, for reviewing the translation. Okay, and then we can come to the prayer after learning. That's oh, sorry, Nick, do you have any questions? If you have any, or even any thoughts you want to share?
I'm all good, but thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So may the merit gained from this practice adorn the Buddha's Pure Land. May he repay the kindness of parents, sentient beings, teachers, and the triple gem from above, and relieve the suffering of those in the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms below. May those who see or hear of this practice generate the aspiration for ultimate enlightenment. When this life ends, may we be born together in the land of ultimate bliss. We pray to all Buddhas of 10 directions, past, present, and future, to all Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, Mahaprajna Paramita. Amitofo, thank you, Venerables. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, all of my friends online.